Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, it's great to be here. Thank you for coming out. And obviously, last minute, we appreciate it. We're just doing a little whirlwind here in Florida over the weekend. I just spent the last week in Iowa, where we finished up doing all 99 counties in Iowa, and it was a great time, and we've really started to pick up quite a bit of energy and enthusiasm in Iowa. I just want to remind everybody, and you all know this because I know many of you here are political pros, but what's going on in the national polls really doesn't matter. I mean, it matters for one reason. And actually, I'll give you two reasons it matters. It helps you if you're high in the national polls for two reasons. Number one, you raise a lot more money. And number two, you get a lot more attention in the media. So that can be a good thing and a bad thing, as we have seen. But it does help raise money. But fundamentally, it doesn't help you necessarily win the election. I remind everybody that 4 years ago, the top two people in the polls 4 years ago were Rudy Giuliani and Fred Thompson. And neither of them picked up a delegate, or they didn't pick up very many delegates. None of them ever won a state. And so when you look at that, you just remember that there's the election that matters is the one that's coming up, which is Iowa. And Iowa is a caucus state. It's a state where you can actually meet almost all the people who are gonna vote in that caucus. Not necessarily, but you'll meet a lot of them. You know, to win the Iowa caucuses, who knows in this election? It's such a divided election in the sense there's so many candidates and there's so many choices that you know, some are suggesting maybe even 18 or 20% can end up winning the Iowa caucuses. So it's we're very excited. We're very excited that that we've worked hard there. We've built a good grassroots organization there. We announced just last week that we have over 200 people who have signed up to be caucus chairmen. Just so you understand how a caucus works, it's a Tuesday night, January 3rd. There are they haven't decided how many caucus locations, but it's not like you go to your precinct. You have some counties, which are rather large counties, that have one caucus, and it'll be in a huge auditorium with maybe 10,000 people. And everybody comes to the one place, and you have to stay and listen to speeches, you vote on all sorts of things, and then you vote on a caucus, and you just get a piece of paper and you write the name down. It's not a ballot, okay? You can write any name you want down. And people go there and speak on behalf of the candidates. It takes 2 or 3 hours, so you're talking about people who make a commitment for an evening. So it's not your average voter. It's someone who makes a commitment to come. It's generally more activist folks who tend to come. So building a campaign for the national campaign and lots of television, all those things, those aren't the folks that do well. The folks that do well, who organize on the grassroots level, who actually appear and go to these little counties where they have their caucuses, and there may only be 300 or 400 people that show up at the caucus, but if you can get, as we do in some of these counties, we have 5 or 10 people who are willing to be caucus captains for us. You know, we can overwhelmingly win that county by having folks work for us in that area. So I just share that with you, and that you're going to see, I guarantee you, you're going to see in the next, not maybe even the next few weeks, but toward the end, you're going to see this race break, and you're going to see some people come out of the pack and surprise folks in Iowa, and that will change the race overnight. Because none of these polls matter, as Rudy Giuliani found out. None of these polls matter unless you can do well or win a state. And we can do well and win in Iowa. And once that happens, then the attention will turn to us, and we're ready for it. Because I've been there. I've run big races before. The last couple of times I ran, the races cost over $20 million each. Well, actually, well over $20 million each. So these are big races in a big competitive state, and we've been through the ringer. So I'm excited with the way these primaries are structured. It really does fit a candidacy like ours. I always say we're the William F. Buckley candidate, the most electable conservative in the lot. We're conservative on national security issues, we're conservative on moral cultural issues, we're conservative on economic and fiscal issues, and we are a candidate that can bring all of the branches of the Republican Party together. And I have a track record, as I just mentioned, to be able to win elections and organize elections, to be able to put elections together. I always remind everybody that maybe being experienced is not a good thing in this election cycle. People are looking for the new and the fresh. The problem with that is it's always good to have someone who actually has won an election and governed. So you have some understanding of what you're dealing with. And if you look at what I've done, I mean, I've been able to win elections, like I mentioned, in a tough state. I'm the only person in this race who's won a swing state. If you look at all the other folks, I mean, you have Herman Cain, who's run 3 times in his life, has lost all 3 times. Okay. And that's fine, but to say I'm a businessman and I'm not a professional politician, well, that's because you lost 3 times. It's not because you're not a professional politician because you didn't win. That's not necessarily the best indication that he's going to be successful in a general election against a skilled politician and the national media and the entire Democratic and presidential apparatus. This is a big first-time opportunity to run a major campaign, and if you haven't had that experience, that's an issue. Mitt Romney's ran and won in Massachusetts, but he ran not as a conservative. He ran as a moderate to liberal, and he didn't run for re-election. He didn't run for re-election in 2006. I did, and Massachusetts would have been a tough one to win, and it was a tough one to win for us. But he chose not to run. I did. I lost. We were able to run still well ahead of President Bush in that race, even though we lost. So if you look at, again, I won a swing state. Mitt Romney won a state that, frankly, if we win Massachusetts, we're going to win 50 states. So if you're looking for someone who can win a state that matters, that's going to it's going to be like Florida, Pennsylvania, Ohio. We all know the states. They're the ones that matter. I can tell you if at 10 o'clock at night the election results, if I'm on the ballot and the election results are called for me over Barack Obama in Pennsylvania, you guys can go to sleep. It's over. There's no chance. There's no chance. Right? There's absolutely no chance Barack Obama can get to 270 electoral votes without going through Pennsylvania, and we can beat him in Pennsylvania. So again, Rick Perry, another governor who's won statewide, but he's won in Texas. I mean, it's not hard to run as a Republican in Texas and win. And so if you just look at the candidates, the other candidates are all congressmen from Republican districts. I mean, I was a congressman too, but I represented an overwhelmingly Democratic district and won 2 elections against 2 incumbents. That's the other thing. No one has ever beat a Democratic incumbent except me. No one has won a swing state except me. I mean, I go back and you talk to folks, say, I hear this a lot. Well, we like you, Rick, but we're not sure you can win. I think so. I would make the argument I'm the only one that's proven that they can win. The only one that has a track record of actually winning in the exact kind of race that we need to win if we're going to win the presidency. So I just share that with you. That when you hear all this talk, we've got a good record that can win and be successful in doing what we need to do, which is defeat Barack Obama. Let me just make one final comment, then I'll take your questions. One of the reasons we're starting to do very, very well in Iowa is we're laying out a very positive message for the future of our country. And it's not just a message about economics, and I've put together a very strong plan. It's a strong plan not just because it's a good plan that Republicans can rally around, because it lowers rates, goes back to the Reagan model of tax rates, and simplifies the code much more than even Reagan did. Back to just 5 basic deductions in the code. Everything else is gone, except children, housing, pensions, health care, and charities. Everything else goes away. We now have a simple code, one that everybody can fill out, lower rates, and is exactly what America is looking for, and I know what Republicans are looking for. We marry that with something that is very important to Democrats. And people say, well, why would you put something there important to Democrats? Because it's also important to Republicans. And that is lowering tax rates, developing a strong energy policy, reforming the regulatory process, and getting money from overseas, from factories that were profitable there back to America. Those four things we do. We cut the corporate tax for manufacturers from 35% to 0. We take every regulation that costs over $100 million that the Obama administration put in place, and we repeal it. In some cases we may have to replace it, but we repeal every one of them. We replace them if we have to with regulations that are friendlier to manufacturing, that they can be competitive. Third, we revitalize the energy sector by getting rid of all the deductions and exclusions and credits and all the things that we do to encourage windmills or ethanol. Get rid of them all. Get rid of all the subsidies and let the free market work. Open up ANWR. Open up North Dakota. Let us drill for gas and for oil. Let us mine coal. Get energy prices down to help our country, keep our prices down, but also very much help the manufacturing sector of the economy, which is heavily dependent upon electricity and natural gas. And fourth, that money that's overseas that manufacturers made when they moved their jobs overseas, about $1.5 trillion is sitting overseas right now. We can bring that money back, and if you invest it in plant and equipment under my plan, you pay no taxes at all instead of 35%. Now you've got the capital, you've got the profitability with no taxes, you've got the regulatory reform, you've got lower energy prices. That'll offset the difference that people say, well, you can't get the jobs back, we're not competitive. If you exclude labor, we're 20% more expensive in America than our 9 biggest trading partners to do business. Those four things we do will wipe out that 20% and then some. And we'll be able to compete again. It's not just labor. Everybody says, oh, it's just labor. Because no, it's not. It's a whole bunch of other things. And if we can compete on those other things, given the kind of manufacturing it is right now, labor is a very small component of most manufacturing today because it's highly automated. And so we're going to be able, even though it's a small component, it's still a lot of jobs. We're going to be able to compete for those jobs. And why do I focus on that? For a couple reasons. Number one, it employs people who are mostly non-college educated. A lot of folks who have had an inability to rise in society, and these protesting Wall Street things, or people are concerned that folks who are not less skilled or not having the ability to get good paying jobs. And the average manufacturing job is $20,000 more income than all the other jobs out there. And so if you look at that fact alone, and we start making things here in America, and what more popular thing is there to go out and talk about Made in America again, that can attract not just Republicans, but independents and blue-collar Democrats in states like old Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Indiana. So it's a plan I put together because it'll work for the economy, it'll work for those blue-collar workers, it'll work for the industrial states, and it'll get Democratic support, because all the great plans are great, but you got to pass them. You got to get it through a Congress that's not going to be the easiest Congress to get them through. And so we put together a plan that's good for politics, and it's good policy, and it'll pass to get the economy going. That's leadership, folks. That's trying to figure out how you get things done. And we can do it on the economy, we can do it across the board, but we need your help. I'll stop right there and be happy to take your questions.
MariaNews.com does not endorse any political candidates.